We're going to crack straight on. For those that are coming in after we've started, just that one person, we're going to crack straight on. Wilfred, perhaps I'll start with you. What impact can gender, sexuality, or ethnicity have on your career? And if I could ask you for personal experience, has it, and how have you overcome?
If you're a woman, or you're a person of colour, or you have a sexuality that is not regarded as mainstream, it will have an impact on your career. And so those of us who are either of those will know that to get on, it has an impact. Now, the thing is, what do you do with that sort of impact? In my case, I have a business and a brand called The Black Farmer. Now, I'll tell you how that came about. I decided that I wanted to create my own brand, my own food brand, and I bought a farm down in Devon, and I did all the research and everything that one does to come up with a product, and I was scratching my head thinking, what the hell do I call this brand? And then one day it came to me. Now remember, I live in Devon, and there are no black people down there in Devon at all. The only time that people see black people is on television. And then one day it came to me, all of my next door neighbors used to call me the Black Farmer. And I thought, well, shit, you know, this is a pretty good brand name. Not only is it a really good brand name, but there's no one else out there who could nick the idea. And then not only could they not nick the idea, but it has an edge to it. Now, it says something about our society that actually the word black farmer has an edge to it, because there's a slight double take moment when people are not too sure about, well, whether it's politically correct. There is this real sort of confusion about, well, what is the sort of language that you should use when you're referring to people of colour? So you go 50 miles outside any sort of town or city, and people feel a lot more comfortable using the word coloured than they do the word black. Now, it's not because they're being facetious or anything like that. It's just in terms of culturally where they're at, that is what they think is polite. And so in terms of colour, that demonstrates to me what a long way we need to get to for people to feel comfortable using the word black. And so hopefully I'm helping that process by having a brand called The Black Farmer, because people then feel comfortable using the word black. And I've been to events listening to two women having a debate with each other about whether it's acceptable to use the word black. And that, for me, tells you how far we've got to go. So if in 2015 people are having those sort of conversations, it has to have an impact that, you know, one of the things I did is that I stood for politics, and I knew, and I stood in an all-white area, and I knew that every time I knocked on that door, there'll be that moment when there is that, there is that sort of, he's black. And again, it's really difficult describing that to people who've never sort of experienced that. But again, if you're a woman, if you're black, and you will know there'll be a moment when people are just not too sure. And what you then have to do is help them overcome it. Shut up, Wilfred, and let somebody else.
Maggie, yes, please. You've shut him up, and you've got the floor. I'll come to you in a moment.
I've got it for a minute, right?
Okay, sorry.
So for me, I completely get it with Wilfred. Absolutely, couldn't say anything better than he's done. But for me, it's about this. I am very interested in difference. And if we understand that it takes the brain 100 milliseconds to notice someone different from you, you have a reaction. If you are black, and you're in a group of white people, if we take just what you're talking about, they take 100 milliseconds to notice how different you are to them, and you likewise. It takes 150 milliseconds to notice someone's gender difference from yours. And it works both ways. For me, what Alfred has talked about, which is your visual kind of impact, I always look to a little bit deeper than that, because I'm just saying that, open the door and seeing someone black is kind of wow. For me, it's also to do with, you mentioned language, names, what you're called. So my name is Maggie Semple. I can't tell you how many times people do not expect to see me. And when you listen to me on the phone, you're not expecting a black woman who hails from Scotland. Her grandfather was a white Scotsman who travelled to a place called British Guiana, which was a British colony at the time, who was an engineer. My father was born, called Robert Semple, a good engineer. He travelled with my mother to London, and I was born Margaret Semple, a good Scottish name, and my sister Eve Marie Semple. There is something about diversity and difference which is so complex that looking at it through different lenses is how I think we actually move the debate on. So I just want to support Wilfred in what he said, but to add my own perspective, which is, you know, kind of, it's more than gender and sexuality and so on. That's where we started from.
Jan, either to Maggie's point or perhaps with and with your Stonewall hat on, this question of impact on career, have you seen it? Does it happen? And how can we overcome this?
Well, of course, we all have our own individual journeys, and mine was one where I was confronted with issues around my gender. And the way in which that turned up was that through my career in advertising and marketing, I would find that I was the first woman too. That would quite often be attached to me, and often I felt quite proud about that, but it was also very difficult because there weren't role models around. When I joined an advertising agency, having graduated from Cambridge with a degree in economics, I was told, don't let people know you can type, what we now know as keyboard skills, because they'll think you're in the typing pool. So basically, if you had a posh voice and you worked in advertising, it was assumed that you were a PA. And so there weren't any women who were even directors, never mind on the board, which I'm proud to say I managed to do. When I was in my 40s, I fell in love with a woman, which I have to tell you was a great surprise to me, to her, to my family, and actually a very difficult time for me. It caused my marriage to break down. It was a tremendous shock. But one of the impacts of that was I have now been learning in the last 7 to 8 years what it means to be a gay woman. And actually, this is not something that is visible. So I guess the first thing to say about being gay is I don't think you can necessarily tell. There are people who you may think are gay who are not, and there are people who you may not imagine are on the spectrum. Actually, they might be bisexual, they may be trans, but they don't necessarily, it's not evident to you. So what's particularly challenging about the area of LGBT is you have to come out. You will hear people talk about this big moment of coming out. And it's not something you do once. So there's a lot of emotion around the first time you do it, particularly the first time you do it at work. And many people, unfortunately, do not feel able to be out at work. But you come out constantly and every day. And how can it just be a natural part of conversation so you don't make people jump? But you don't know what the reaction is you're going to get. And the thing about coming out is you can't put it back in once you've done it. So it's quite a big thing. In terms of impact on me personally, I caused my own detriment in terms of the impact being a gay woman had on me. Because when I joined Aviva, I was at British Gas when I fell in love with this woman. I came out to my boss. I never even thought about what that meant. I was simply explaining to him that my marriage was in difficulty. I didn't realise that being gay or saying that you were gay might cause a negative reaction. That was something, unfortunately, that I have learnt. When I went to Aviva, I'm very senior, I'm one of, I think, 12 women in the group across the world who are at my level. The advice I was given by someone very well-intentioned was, look, you're from marketing, which frankly, if you go and work in the city, is a bit of a soft discipline, sorry to say, at the marketing festival. You're a woman and a senior woman, there's not many of you around. I really wouldn't be the most out lesbian as well. So I went to Aviva not out, and it absolutely affected my performance at work. I think I'm quite an unusual case study. It's like a P&G side-by-side comparison. I had the experience of being out, and then I had a year when I was not out. It hugely affected my behaviour, my sense of being myself, how I was with my colleagues. It's actually a pretty insulting thing to do to your colleagues, to not trust them with that information. So when they then discover, it's a kind of, why didn't you trust me to be okay with that? So you're causing all sorts of difficulties. And when I had my review after a year, I'd achieved all my objectives in a hard sense. But my boss said to me, you've completely lost your sparkle. And I knew what she meant. And I came out the next day and haven't looked back. But concerningly, at Aviva, because we monitor, we ask people their sexual orientation, What to me is very fascinating is not the 3% of the workforce who will tell us their orientation, but the 5% who prefer not to say. And for me, in terms of monitoring this whole area, how do we reduce the number of people who prefer to say, even given a few of those people are just saying none of your business, and they may well be straight, they just think it's an intrusive question. But that's a big number of people who don't feel able to be out. And in marketing, I'm afraid we don't even know these figures. I think marketing, I've been in the marketing press on this, it's an utter disgrace where the marketing industry is. I know that's quite strong language, but if you don't even know how many people are not out at work, how can you say whether there's a problem or not? So I've seen a lot of extraordinary declarations from straight chief executives saying, there's no homophobia in my agency. How do they know? They've absolutely no idea.
Thanks for that. I mean, it does lead on nicely, I suppose. I'm going to start with you, Maggie, on this question. I mean, Jan's just described a situation where something does need to change. To the title of this session, Championing Diversity in the Workforce, what would you say needs to change, and how can we bring about that change?
So I work a lot with major corporates, and I particularly at the moment work in the financial sector and the oil and gas sector. So wherever oil and gas can be found in the world, I can be there too. I work with senior leaders, and they actually pay me to actually give them some pain, or to hold a mirror up to them, or to be honest with them and get them to be honest too. And for me, the agenda has to shift from what I would call just the compliance. So I get the research, lets know who's in our business and what they are and who they are, and is there an environment where people can speak up and without retribution? How do we create that climate? How are we going to ensure, for me, that this business is still in business in 10, 20, 30, 40 years' time, because the world is diverse? What's your antenna like? How do you know what people are doing? How do you know how they think? And for me, I talk a lot about diversity of thought. It's a sophisticated concept, but it is to do with this. Every business, if it wishes to retain its being successful, should know by now. So I think, Jan, you're incredibly patient. I've been in this world too long. I mean, not in terms of me living in this world. I mean, just in this kind of... That's not too long, yeah. I've still got more to do. But, you know, kind of just this in this area, too long, to have not seen enough shift with senior people in major corporates not taking this more seriously. And I expect them to have an intelligent approach to this. Diversity of thought moves a company from its thinking and practice and behaviour and its visibility from compliance. Legislation tells us we have to do this, we have to do that. If you're a global business and you want a license to go and work in Algeria or any other place that's pretty difficult for us, Baku, where I was just recently, you have to have a nationalisation agenda, which means you've understood some of these issues. If you can't do that, your business is not going to thrive. So why would you surround yourself with people that look like you, just look like you, let alone think differently from you? A good chief exec is surrounded by people that they find a real pain in the backside, to be honest, and they manage it. So for me, that's what I would say.
Wilfred, I mean, Jan and Maggie seem to be in agreement that there's certainly there's a need for change. I'd like to get your take on what should change.
Okay. I'm quite cynical, really. I don't belong to corporate society, and I tell you what, any major corporate company worth their salt will have their corporate responsibility department. They'll have their diversity department. And I'm sure for those of you who work in big corporate organizations, October is Black History Month, and that's when you think, oh shit, we better do something to demonstrate that we're into sort of diversity. And we'll have conferences. You know, I've been invited to tons of them, and then the old chief exec comes down and I think, oh God, thank we got October over and done with, and then back to sort of normal again. What I fundamentally believe, how you bring about change is with people like Maggie, is where you have senior people who take responsibility and say, we are going to be responsible for demonstrating to the company that A, we are diverse, and we're going to do that by taking the lead. And the more senior people who do that, the more we're going to have, we will have change, rather than this idea that we'll just tick the box without any... It's quite interesting looking in this room here. I knew it wouldn't be full, really, because diversity is so low down the list of most people's agendas. And even for you lot, I'm going to kick you lot as well, is that actually it would have demonstrated how important it is if we were on the main stage and you did a big thing. Is that what we have to do is that we have to put diversity high on the agenda. And if you put it high on the agenda, that is when you then see change. But as a sort of marketing conference, oh shit, we better do something about diversity. We'll get a few people in and talk about it. So it's all about culture and attitude, which is going to bring about the change. So people like Maggie, well done.
Jan.
Sorry.
But Maggie too, I think you meant.
I don't mind.
I'm big enough to take a kick in. We have done this year, and we'll do a lot more in terms of championing diversity within marketing. But I can promise you that, Wilfred. Okay. Just moving on a little bit, and I'm going to start with you on this, Jan. What are the advantages for companies that employ people from a diverse background? I mean, from a marketing point of view, how does that benefit?
Well, I suppose for me, the logic, and it's such a relief because you will understand my jargon because we're in the marketing family. But the way it works for me is we do actually want to, with our brands, show that we're connected to our customer base. We know our customer base is diverse. Whatever the bullseye target is, it will in itself be diverse because there's more difference than there is commonality, although we're trying to simplify. If we want to develop brands who are able to relate to all of their customers, then actually, rather than starting with, let's, in our advertising, which is that end of the telescope, show black people, have a gay kiss, that'll be a bit edgy. We talk about the pink pound. I mean, I find this marginally insulting, the idea that the only reason marketing people should be interested in gay people is because they're rich. Actually, not all gay people are not all rich. Shock horror, hold the front page. Rather than starting with the executional end of our marketing, going, how can we show diversity in our imagery and in our storytelling? We have to go back to ourselves. If we, in our agencies and in our departments, are not ourselves diverse, how are we ever going to have the intelligent empathy to stop going out as if we're into the jungle looking at the rarer spotted gay person in Scotland, finding out about them, and then we come back into our young white, all dressed in black communities and then develop something. We have to ourselves take this seriously so that we ourselves are diverse, and then it will show up intelligently in the propositions that we develop, in the service that we provide. When I asked us at Aviva to do a review of what did our gay customers want from us, do you know what they said? LGBT, I should say, not just gay. The most important thing they want is for it to be completely unremarkable that they are in a same-sex marriage. They want it to be completely remarkable if they call in and say, actually, I'm changing my gender. They do not want to be asked to send in their gender certification. I mean, why would someone ring up and say, look, on my car insurance, I know you thought I was a woman, I am now a man. Why would someone do that if it wasn't true? And frankly, even if they did, why do we need proof and evidence and passports and wrapping up administration around people? So the customer experience and it being unremarkable when you turn up as you are with your real lived experience, just treat that as part of the rich tapestry that is the people who live in this country. Don't come up with a pink pound, pink Cadillac, pink hearse, when I die, I want everything in pink. That's not how gay people just want their car insurance. And if you have multi-car, I would want my wife. I don't have a wife. If I did have a wife, and I say, actually, I'd like my wife, don't jump out of your skin that I haven't said my husband. That's just the calm customer experience that people want. So heal ourselves first, and then it will flow out naturally in our propositions and our brand strategies.
Could I just add something?
Yeah, just 1 minute, because I want to go to questions and your film. But please do.
That's what I was going to lead on. In a moment, I'm going to show you a TV ad which is coming out 2016. It's my ad for the Black Farmer brand, the first time we're advertising on television. And what I wanted to do with this advert is that I wanted to get away from sort of stereotypes. I was sick to death that every time we actually showed, you saw a TV ad on TV, the marketers would think, oh God, we need a black person. There'd be a rather sort of dull role for a black person. And I just thought, well, black does not mean you belong to this stereotype. So you've either got to be a sportsman or you've either got to be a rap artist. And when you see this commercial, you're going to see this and you're going to think, bloody hell. It's so different to what people's expectations are. And that is what I wanted to actually do. So even though you belong, I'm proud of being black, but I like the fact that I'm eccentric and I like sort of bizarre things. And the final thing I'll say about this is that this ad could never, ever have come out of a white mind. And that is because there's all this stuff around about, political correctness, about offending people. And what we have to learn to do is free ourselves up so you can just be. So that's what I hope this ad will actually
You set that up perfectly. Let's have a look at this, and then we'll get straight into your questions. Thank you, Wilfred.
Okay.
Can we all see?
Could we turn this light? Could we do this properly? Turn this light off so they've got a cinema viewing.
We've got popcorn, maybe. I don't know.
I am the beat. I am black, red, white and blue. I'm an Englishman. I am the earth. I'm a rock. I am the universe. I am the beat. I'm the trees. I'm the roots. I'm the aura of herbs. I am the beat. Without frontiers, I'm free from, I am taste, I'm a smile at the end of a bad day. I am the beat. I'm a table set for a feast, I'm the summer breeze, I'm the winter chill. I'm the newborn child, I'm the echo of childhood, I'm a dreamer. I'm a blackbird, I will make the sky roar, I'm a black cat with a white tail. I am the beat. I'm the dance of fools and beasts. I'm the chant every man, woman and child deserves. I am freedom. And I am one brilliant day. I'm a survivor and I'm what and who I am. I never walk in circles when I can walk in a straight line. I am love, I'm a father, I'm the flame of my forefathers and all those that became before me. I am the black farmer, and this is my soul.
I think it's safe to say, even in what presumably will be a shorter execution on TV, that's going to stand out not only from the rest of the adverts, but also, well, as importantly, from sausage adverts. And I'm really hungry. I really want a sausage right now. Yeah. Right, we've got some questions here. I'm also going to go to the floor. We've got some time, and I know Maggie's got a little surprise at the end, so we've got. Let's rattle on. Let's start with the top question. It's a great question. How do you think the debate will be different in, say, 20 years' time? We've got like 30 seconds each. I'm going to go to Jan first.
Well, I hope in 20 years' time, and this is what we discuss in Stonewall, our aspiration is that given the incredible and positive change that there's been in this country in the last 25 years on the legislative agenda, that attitudes and behaviours will have changed so much that in 20 years' time, we will be much less concerned about these subjects in this country, certainly with regard to LGBT and the understanding around all the points that have been made on diversity, that we will be much more concerned about our global strategies and how we're going to take this mature, business-winning, growth-winning, profit-making attitude to business and the employment of our people and the release of their potential to other markets in which we operate. And that's what we're thinking about at Aviva. How do we take this kind of thinking into all the markets in which we operate as a brand?
Maggie, we haven't, sorry, forgive me, we haven't heard from Maggie for a while, so if you can come on that one.
Very quickly, so for me, the language has to have changed. No longer are we nervous about saying black, which that means that should already have gone, but no matter where you are in the UK, particularly, the language will have changed. For me, when language changes, mindsets have changed, and therefore behaviours change. And that's what I need to see in the next 20 years. In my lifetime, I just want to make sure that when you see Maggie Semple, the name, you don't go, or a blackface, and you open the door, in whatever way you do. Because we get pretty smart about covering all that up. We just learn another technique just to say the same things.
Okay. It will change in 20 years based on what you do. Now, what you've all got to do is that you've all got to applaud yourselves for actually coming to this debate, because it's about people like you who will bring about the change. And I just think you've all got to sit there and you've got to admire yourselves for actually coming here and not going somewhere else, because you see that this is important. So the more people like you around, the more that you actually put this really top on the agenda, that is how we will come about change.
Agreed.
That's fantastic. We've got a question. I will then, right at the back there.
Thank you.
And we'll slot Christopher's question in at the end. Thanks.
Yeah, great talk, guys. Thanks. My name is Alex. I work for a company called General Assembly. We work with a lot of big companies who tell us that the way that they bring this issue into the workplace, instead of separating out as a diversity issue, is to try to assimilate it to being aligned with some of the values that Gen Y and the millennials bring into the workplace, because they have similar demands. Then they have the demands about the workplace are about it being open, accepting, and do you think that's a good framework to think about these types of issues, or should it be separated out as a specific issue?
Can I ask maybe just one of you to take that one, if you've got a...
Well, I would just say that unfortunately the truth of the matter is, in big organisations like Aviva, is the younger next generation aren't the people running the company. They're not the people making the decisions. So yes, they're important as an ingredient, but they can't actually make the change happen. The other thing I'd say to you is that, alarmingly, it would seem that 60% of graduates go back in the closet when they join the workforce. So I think your expectations on that generation, certainly around LGBT, are too great if you imagine that we can all just stand still and wait for the next generation coming through to solve the problem. We've all got to be on this, and especially the people who lead and run organisations.
Thanks, Jan. Is Christopher in the room?
Yeah.
Hello. I'm going to address this one to Maggie first. Do you find employing people based on race or gender an insult to those that genuinely earn their position? It's quite a provocative question.
Very provocative, and well done, Christopher, and thank you very much. Two responses to that. First of all, I have to say, I have enjoyed being a black woman, actually. It's not been all terror and gloom and so on, so let's make it positive. But along the way, for me personally, if I knew I got a job based on my gender or my colour of my skin, that would really upset me greatly. So nobody wants that. And I don't think any employer, and I don't employ people in my own business just based on any issues to do with that. For me, it's the best person for the job. And for me, that's not only, back to the first person's question, not only are the qualifications, whatever they need, experience, but for me, it's their values. And when I run a business in the way that I run it, if your values are strong, and no matter who you are, you will get the role. If it's not meritocratic, which is where I get really kind of quite keen on this, then for me, it's not fair. And then you start getting into that legislative debate, which is, should you be doing this anyway? So great question, and I do find it is an insult if you only recruit people because of the colour of their skin, in my case, or that she's a woman. You know, people invite me to sit on boards, and the first thing I say is, why? And they've got very clever ways of saying, actually, you really fill our diversity quota. And I go, no thanks.
Wilfred, do you want the final word on this?
I mean, I just think...
You don't have to.
No, I'll leave it there.
I'm trusting that you have a word.
No, I'll just leave it there. No,
Brilliant. Well, join me in thanking and congratulating what has been a fantastic panel. And don't disappear, because I don't know how you want to do this, Maggie, but
Okay.
you've got a surprise for somebody in the room.
So I make ladies' clothes. I'm very keen on women and so on, in my brand. And under someone's seat in this room, or next to you, is a miniature dress. if that dress is under your seat, please shout out, and you have won a dress from me.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
Anyone?
I know exactly
All right.
where it is in the room. It's actually next to someone. She's in the 3rd row. She's got a brown jumper on. Next to you, she's looking. You've won it.
Congratulations. There you go.